Moving on to our power sector focus, in 2013, the Nigerian power sector has seen the move of ownership of the generating and distribution companies from the government to the private arm. Now, earlier, I spoke to Eric Olo, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at North-South Power, and we talked about the challenges and the opportunities in the hydroelectric power sector of the country.
Shiro Power Plant is a hydroelectric power plant. Essentially, our main commodity is water, and retention of water for us is actually critical. So in reference to operating at complete capacity, at this point what we are doing is we have full capacity available, but we obviously retain and manage what we can disperse based on demands, first and foremost, and secondly, based on what the actual efficiency of the assets would be.
Let's talk about some of the challenges that you face in the hydropower sector.
One of the first challenges is understanding hydropower in Nigeria. I mean, even though power plants of this nature have been around for decades, and it's primarily information that's been available not in the private sector. So to date, one of the biggest challenges for us is analyzing, understanding, how power works from this particular mechanism of generation, and secondly, understanding how best to make it efficient for the system. Now, we do have to bear in mind that also, in addition to the technology behind this, there's also the people and the industry as a whole, which is evolving. In addition to that, one is understanding the dynamics of the economics. There's a huge amount of investment that's going to be required to develop the sector. A lot of that capital for the first round was sourced locally, but going forward, a lot of that has to come from international markets, and they have to understand the business just as we're trying to understand it. So it's an ongoing learning process. So I think the first challenge is better understanding how the business needs to work, how the industry needs to work, and how to make it more efficient across the board.
Now, you mentioned getting funding from international markets. So where are you in regards to that?
Foreign sources, when it comes to supplying capital, they need to understand where and how that capital is going to be dispersed. Whether in our particular case it's going to be for expansion, whether it's going to essentially be for managing existing operations. I think for now what we're trying to do is get as much information and as much partnership in place.
It'd be interesting to know why you decided to go with Hydra.
Well, Hydra's green for all intents and purposes. It's safe, because at the end of the day, as long as it rains, you can generate electricity. And more importantly, from our perspective, we thought that some of the challenges around procuring gas, we weren't really privy or don't have a good understanding of that market. So for us, it was a safe bet for now. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to get into other areas, but at least for now, it's the first footstep, and it's a safe footstep.
So what's the next step for you in the short term?
We've made a commitment, and that commitment isn't just to the government, but to the Nigerian people as a whole, that we're in the energy business, we're in the power business to make power readily affordable within the country. So we'd look to expand, but first and foremost, it's to provide levels of efficiency. Obviously, right now, generation is not a commodity. The idea is for generation to get to a point where it's cheap and affordable. We certainly want to divest into other areas as well and partner with other groups. So our main motto, we formed an acronym, which we call the simple acronym, which is essentially stabilize our business and increase efficiency, manage the marketing expectations and measurements and what have you, increase capacity, and then from there on look to continue to on a growth perspective.
Can you tell us a little more about some of the areas that you plan to go into?
I did mention that we're green, and in today's era, technology is expanding in such a way that being green can also be efficient and be economic. In today's environment, solar, which is heavily abundant at least on this part of the planet, is an area that we're looking into. We certainly are looking to other areas of hydro, and there are other technologies that are becoming more readily available and more affordable that we would want to actually expand into. Our belief is that since we're entering the global power arena late, we have an opportunity to step ahead of some of the other parts of the globe who have actually been in this business for longer. We can learn from their mistakes.